What happens when pure talent isn't enough to save you from yourself? Gilbert Arenas went from being a second-round afterthought to one of the NBA's most electric superstars. But while his game was dazzling, his off-court decisions were disastrous. From questionable behavior to one shocking locker room incident, Arenas watched his career collapse long before it should have. Not because he couldn't play, but because he couldn't stop himself. The 2001 NBA draft was supposed to be Gilbert Arenas' big moment. Coming out of Arizona, he had lit up college defenses with his scoring, quickness, and fearless attitude. On paper, he had all the tools: smooth jumper, explosive first step, and a killer instinct most players only dream of. But as his name kept getting passed over, round after round, the harsh reality of NBA politics kicked in. Behind the scenes, team executives whispered about more than just his stats. They saw a young man with swagger that sometimes spilled into arrogance. Stories flooded about his immaturity, his stubborn streak, and his unpredicted behavior off court. Was he coachable? Could he handle the fame, the money, the pressure? One by one, teams decided that he wasn't worth the gamble. And so, instead of waking up early to shake the commissioner's hand, Arenas watched 30 names go before his. Finally, the Golden State Warriors took him at the 31st overall, a second-round pick with a chimp now firmly planted on his shoulder. Landing in the Golden State Warriors, Gilbert Arenas arrived with something to prove, and everyone could feel it. Overlooked on the draft night, he carried that chip into every practice, every game, every possession. But his rookie season didn't exactly scream future star. Minutes were scarce, and the Warriors already had their eye on more established guards. Still, beneath the surface, Arenas was sharpening his blade. By his second season, the breakout was impossible to ignore. Night after night, he pulled in points, 18.3 per game, with fearless drive, deep threes, and an unpredictable offensive flair that left defenders guessing. The league took notice. He was named the NBA's most improved player, and suddenly, the kid who almost got left behind was looking like a future franchise cornerstone. But even as his star rose, whispers remained. Teammates sometimes bristled at his cockiness. Coaches wondered if his ego might eventually outweigh his talent. And then came the cruel twist of NBA franchise rules. The Warriors couldn't afford to keep him. Just as Arenas was becoming a star, he was about to get snatched away. In 2003, Gilbert Arenas found his new home in Washington. And this time, there was no waiting in the shadows. The Wizards handed him the keys, and Arenas wasted no time turning the franchise into his personal stage. He adopted the nickname Agent Zero, a nod to the number of minutes critics thought he'd play in the NBA. It was classic Gilbert, defiant, flashy, and completely unbothered by the outside noise. On the court, he was elegant. Long-range bombs, clutch game winners, and fearless drives became his signature. Fans loved him, opponents feared him. By 2005 through 06, Arenas was averaging a staggering 29.3 points per game, collecting all-star nods, all NBA honors, and even dropping multiple 50-point games like it was nothing. But while his game soared, his off-court persona became equally as loud. Arenas was the league's class clown, always pulling pranks, cracking jokes, and sometimes crossing lines that left teammates and staff shaking their head. His confidence often spilled into cockiness. His jokes sometimes carried an edge. The same unfiltered energy that fueled his rise was starting to reveal cracks beneath the surface. Cracks that would one day blow wide open. As Gilbert's star grew brighter, so did the shadows around him. The pranks, once charming, started crossing into dangerous territory, from filling teammates' cars with popcorn to elaborate locker room jokes that sometimes went too far. Arenas was constantly walking a fine line between funny and flat-out disrespectful. Some teammates laughed, others rolled their eyes, a few started losing patience. Behind closed doors, tension simmered. Fines for locker room conduct quietly piled up. His relationship with certain teammates and coaches became complicated, and then his body started betraying him. Around 2007, knee injuries began chipping away at the explosiveness that had made him so lethal. Still, the Wizards doubled down, offering him a massive $111 million contract, a gamble on both his talent and maturity. But not everyone was convinced. Critics whispered, Was Arenas the kind of leader that he can build a franchise around? Could he handle the responsibility that came with stardom? The cracks were growing, and no one knew just how deeply they ran. By late 2009, things were already shaky for Gilbert Arenas. His knees weren't the same, his roles were shifting, and frustrations behind the scenes were building. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared the NBA for what was about to happen. It started with a card game. A simple gambling session during a team flight turned into something far uglier. Teammate Javaris Crittenton and Arenas reportedly got into a heated dispute over a gambling debt, a few $1,000s. What began as trash talk escalated into something far more dangerous. Days later, Arenas walked into the Wizards locker room carrying several unloaded firearms. With his usual twisted sense of humor, he laid them out in front of Crittenton's locker as a joke, but Crittenton wasn't laughing. Instead, he allegedly pulled out his own gun in response. In an instant, a petty argument spiraled into a locker room standoff. Guns drawn, tempers flaring. Word of the incident quickly leaked. The NBA world was stunned. The media frenzy was immediate and unforgiving. David Stern, the NBA commissioner, acted swiftly, suspending Arenas indefinitely. But the fallout didn't stop there. A federal investigation followed. Arenas pleaded guilty to felony gun possession, receiving probation, 30 days in a halfway house, and community service. The Wizards seized the opportunity to void his massive contract. The league's image took a devastating hit. Sponsors pulled away, fans were disillusioned, and Gilbert Arenas, once a fan favorite, became untouchable almost overnight. The rise had been fast. The fall was even faster. After suspension, Arenas joined Orlando, but injuries ruined his game. Waived, he briefly played for Memphis and in China. By 30, the once electric superstar quietly faded from the NBA. Looking back, Gilbert Arenas' downfall wasn't some sudden collapse. The warning signs were there from the very beginning. Even before he stepped onto an NBA court, teams worried about his attitude. The confidence that fueled his rise often crossed into immaturity and recklessness off court. As his career unfolded, the pattern repeated. The pranks, the clashes with teammates, the refusal to fully grasp the weight of his actions. It all chipped away at the foundation. Then came the injuries. The explosive first step that once terrorized defenders was gone, leaving him vulnerable both physically and mentally. But the locker room gun incident was the true death blow. In one reckless moment, he shattered his reputation, broke the trust of teams, and branded himself with a legal and PR nightmare. No franchise wanted the baggage, not when his body was failing and his image was toxic. Gilbert Arenas' talent was never the problem. His inability to control everything else was. Today, Gilbert Arenas stands as one of the NBA's ultimate what-if stories. A name often mentioned not for championships or records, but for how quickly it all slipped away. For younger fans, he sometimes remembered more for the locker room scandal than that night that he lit up the scoreboard with 50-point performances and the impossible game winners. After basketball, Arenas reinvented himself in the media world. His brutally honest interviews and unfiltered podcast appearances often glimpsed into both his sharp basketball mind and his unapologetic personality. Many of his former teammates still speak fondly about his high basketball IQ, quick wit, and larger-than-life humor. But in the NBA's long history, Gilbert Arenas remains a cautionary tale, a reminder that sometimes talent can take you to the top, but it takes discipline to stay there. Gilbert Arenas had the skill to become one of the all-time greats, but his downfall was self-inflicted. In the end, it wasn't his game that failed him. It was his inability to manage fame, pressure, and responsibility that brought an early end to his NBA story.